Okay, good morning everybody. Ron Land of Fab and Build here. We're talking about table saw tune-ups today. I'm going to get into this relatively quick. I'm going to go in and explain why I'm doing a video on this. Out of all the table saw tune-ups I've seen on YouTube, researched in other platforms, the reason I'm doing this is because I found something on my table saw that obviously nobody has ever had this problem before. I've not seen it in any other videos that I've been able to source or watch, and I have spent a lot of hours because I reached a point that I had done everything that I had known to do for over 50 years in tuning table saws. The trunnion gear table saws are new to me as far as the trunnions on the fence. Of course, I've had big 52-inch cabinet saws. I've had the trunnion gears for all the 45 to 90 and the up and down on the blades and all of that. Super nice. Love trunnion gears on the table saw in any form or fashion. Okay, something we'll get into later. Anyway, I get asked, how do you do it? How do you know it's correct? What are all the little things that you do to make sure that it's right? And what's your process? These are the questions I get asked. So that's why I'm here today. I've got my notes. We're going to jump into this thing and talk about it. Thanks for coming in. Okay, good morning. I'm going to get through this as quick as I can. So in talking about setup out of the box, just want to touch on that real quick because I think this is where a lot of the problems start. Sometimes people, they're excited. Everybody that gets a new tool, there is a level of excitement. Let's just all admit to that, right? We all know how it feels to get a new tool. Like kid in a candy store, brand new present on Christmas Day. So we all get excited, want to get it set up as quickly as possible and get to making sawdust, ripping metal chips, or whatever it is we may be doing. I want to stress right now, take the time to go through any manuals that you may have with that saw. I know I'm saying stuff that's taboo and you're going to light up the comments. I don't need to do that. I don't need instructions. Okay, fine. Just a suggestion. This is me, 55 plus years of working with tools, hand tools, power tools, and otherwise, whatever. So it's going through and making sure that the tools that you get up are set up properly for you to use in the manner in which you bought them to use. I hope that makes sense. This is pretty straightforward as I can be. So I'm going to talk about the table saw today. We have the Grizzly G0869. The one following that now is the G0870. It's exactly the same saw, people. I want you to know that. I want you to know the 869 and the 870, identical saws. The model that changes it is they're selling the 870 with the stand. The 869 is without a stand now. When I bought this, it was like 595 bucks with the stand, okay? The 870 they're selling today, July 10th, 2026, looked it up this morning on the website, $695. So roughly 100 bucks more now 5 years later than when I bought this. So the stand's okay, it's good, it's handy, I like it. I would rather have this in its own encased mobile base, wings that flip out, outfeed that flips out, drawers, organization, blade storage, all that. Another video, another time. So out of the box, take your time to set it up. I'm going to talk about tune-up as well as setup. So there were some inherent problems that I did not find on this saw right away. That is what is spurring this video today. Not only that, I get asked by a lot of people when they run into me, they go, man, how do you set up your table saw? How do you do this? How do you do that? Drill press, bandsaw, what's the process? So I've gotten enough on this. I'm going to go ahead and do a video and we're going to cover it. So this particular saw has the trunnion gear fence, like a lot of the portable job site saws do today. A lot of them have the trunnion gears. I love this feature about this, but if you're not paying attention when you pull it out of the box, this can be a huge problem. This is going to make you hate your saw. And we'll get into that. So the first thing that I want to touch on is that take your fence off, get it out of the way, do whatever you've got to do. So check your tabletop to make sure it's flat. Adjust your throat plates if they're not already adjusted to flat. I have an inherent little hump right here. These tables are all aluminum. Most of them on most of the job sites that I've looked into, Makita, DeWalt, Grizzly, Shop Fox, across the board. Most of these tops on these portable saws today are thin gauged aluminum, all right? They're gonna flex, they're gonna bend. Extreme heat is going to make these things bow, okay? And they may not come back right away. If they bow out of shape, you may have to work it to get it back into shape, okay? Just gonna let you know that. The manufacturer may tell you, oh, that should never be a problem. Well, then if it's not a problem, they need to talk to me, because I've had this problem with this saw since I got it. I just didn't think it was bad enough at the time for me to address to Grizzly, so I absorbed that whole cost on this, bought it, didn't call them. Now it's my baby. If I want to go something different, I'll do a different saw. The thing is, make sure that they're flat surface. Check your miters. Put a tape on your miters. Make sure they're the same across. They should be. There should be no reason why they're not equal, but check that, okay? Once you get your top all figured out, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we set our blade to 90. That's a relatively easy thing to do. You get you a square, machinist square, and you pull it out and you set it up on your blade. I'm going to use this one today. Get it up here, set it up to your blade, make sure that it's at 90. Okay. I don't know if y'all can see that. There. So no light going between the square and the blade. I have that set. How you set that is going to be off the little cam locks that they have here. There is a cam lock here. All right. I don't know how well you can see that, if I can zoom in on that or not. There's a cam lock here. There's an adjustment nut right there connected to it. On the 45, you have the same thing up here, okay? The adjustment screws here. The cam lock is on the inside, right? So once you get those set, here's what I would suggest. Set your 90. Then your little needle down here, set that to 0, all right? Well, you can see that. But there's a gauge right here. Make sure that you set that to 0 right here, all right? And you get that dialed in. Then you can move to your 45. Once your scale is set at 0 and you go to 45, you get your blade true to 45, you get your cam lock set, locked in, that dial should be dead on 45. If the scale that they provided you with on your saw is absolutely correct. Now, if it's not, I'm going to tell you the one thing most people don't want to hear. Stop right there, document it, take pictures of it, contact your manufacturer. There's no sense in going down that road to cause yourself a bigger headache. If you find that it's wrong right out of the box, call them. They can fix that. They can actually replace it, whatever they need to do. I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that the manufacturer is giving you what you're paying for. You should be getting what you expect to get for the price that you pay. Those can be different. Anyway, so moving on. Once you have the 90 and the 45 set, I will go in, I check my miter. I have a miter slot gauge. What did I do with it? I did something with it. Okay. This is my good old trusty miter gauge. I've had this for a very long time. The one that came with this saw, I threw it in the trash. There was no sense in keeping it. It was about a degree off. For lack of a better way to put it, and I'm using layman's terms, it was trash. It should have never been put with the saw. It was good. It was a garbage item taking up space in the box. Now, I'm not trying to bang on Grizzly. That miter saw was trash. It was just simply trash. So I have a good one. Get yourself a good one. You set your deal up in your miter slot, and I'm going to turn this around just for the video's sake. Take, line your blade up. Make sure that you're not touching any teeth. I like to raise the blade all the way up. Get my machinist square or whatever I'm using that I know to be true and square, and put it against the actual blade. Not press hard, just get up against it and touch it. See if there's any light. If you do have the blade is not true to adjustment, and a lot of them are going to be off a little bit. I don't care how nice your saw is, unless they took the time, it went through QC, if they have QC at their company, at their manufacturer, and it went through QC and it was dialed in and locked down where it should be, okay? When you start paying thousands of dollars for saws, this is what I expect. However, in transit delivery, things get bumped and jostled. Those things can move. So expect to have to adjust it a little bit. You're going to take the 2 of the 4 bolts or whatever that's holding the saw blade housing. More than likely you're going to have your vacuum connected to that housing. The motor is going to be on the exterior of that housing. The housing that holds the blade, the arbor, and everything else that runs up and down, okay, and tilts. So take 2 of the 4 loose. No sense in doing all 4 of them unless it came to you so out of whack that you have to do it that way. If it's so close to one side of the throat plate, then by all means get it centered up, right? There's no sense in just letting it go. But you shouldn't have to do that. So undo those, adjust it, get it square, tighten those back down. Once you have those tight, you can then, what I suggest to do is bring in your fence. Now, that's a general on all of that. That can be done, the cams, the blade, the housing, miter slots. That's going to be done on pretty much any table as a rule. This is where it starts to get slightly different because we have the big cast iron plate tables that have different fence systems. You might have fence rails that you have to attach to your cast iron table, okay? Chances are if you got a cast iron table, that's going to happen. Front and rear rails. My big former 52-inch cabinet saw was a 3 horsepower Powermatic. Very nice saw, loved it. There were a few little quirky things about it I didn't care for. Did not like the way I had to raise and lower the landing gear because I was in a 2-car garage. Very seldom did I have to move it, but when I did, I actually hated the landing gear. It was just a pain. It did not work flawlessly like I expected it to. You had to push and pull in and out and all that. That's fine and good. It's just, it always seemed to catch in between the two. And then it was extremely hard to get up and down. Those saws are not light. Just the case, the body of the saw with the tabletop, okay, was roughly about 700 pounds. Cast everything. Anyway, so the difference being, those are slides. They have bumpers they ride on, bearings they ride on, whatever it is the fence system is, it's on 2 separate rails. With these, we have a trunnion, right? The trunnion gears here, front and rear. This is where it gets a little tricky. I keep something blowing in my face. So this is where it gets a little tricky. We have the trunnion gears. You can actually have your saw shipped to you and one of these fences be out of alignment. Ask me how I know. So, and it took, here's the bad part, it took me almost 5 years to catch that. It was by all rights, I didn't see it at first, okay? I kind of noticed it on the miter slot and I thought, it seems to be cutting okay. Why? Because at Grizzly, at the manufacturer, what they did is they took my saw and they lined up this blade to the fence. The fence was already out. I'll explain how. So on these trunnion fences, and I'm sure that most of these are going to be the same or very close in similarity, okay? These screws here, these are not slots on this guide, and I'm gonna do some anatomy here. This is a guide, this is a fence rail right here, this is a fence. Pretty self-explanatory, but it gets, when I get to flying through here, you know what I'm saying when I say it. So fence rails, guide rails, okay? The guide rails do not move. These are bolted right into place, tight. It's a single drill hole, so no slots. So those are stationary, they're gonna be that way. On your fence itself, these plates on the end of this extruded aluminum, stationary. It's one hole, screws in, that's it. There's no adjustment, okay? On here, I can undo this screw. I have two placement settings for this. This is the only adjustment I have for the fence up here, okay? I can move it back here to this setting and gain 4 inches of extended cut. 28.5 on this one, and then I have 24.5 cutting capacity on this one here. Get in there. All right. So that's the difference there. That's the only adjustment for this. Okay. That's it. Now I have a 1-inch flip stop if I want to cut thin material. I can do that and have the thin material up here, whatever, to get my push stick in here. I don't have this all in the way. Now, that being said, we move to the trunnions. Should you have to realign your fence rails because one of them is too far one way or the other, and that was the case for me. My back rail was one tooth that way, causing this fence to be pitched like that, all more of 1/8 of an inch, okay? So conversely, when I straightened this up to the miter slot, okay, once I got this aligned right, because when I used my miter, I was having really off weird cuts and pushing and pulling and all kinds of garbage that shouldn't have been happening. So once I checked it, I said, oh, for whatever reason, my miter slot's out. That shouldn't have been. Got that adjusted, now this is out. Because if you remember, I told you when they shipped it, they aligned this to that. They shipped it to me wrong. It was getting it out the door, that's all it was, okay? Now I'm not banging on Grizzly. I call this my Friday saw. Because if you've been around long enough, you've heard of the Monday, Friday. Monday you don't want to be there. Friday you're already gone. You're just waiting to leave. Okay. I think this was a Friday saw. It was close, but it wasn't right. Right. They had already checked out for the day. The minute they clocked in, they were checked out and already on vacation. Wherever they were trying to go or going to be that weekend, mentally they were already there. So that being what it is, you have to take all 3 of these. This one you can leave, just break it loose, front and back. Take these 2 out. Take this one out. The reason I'm saying leave these in, this one, and take this one out is it's closest to the trunnion. Once you get that done, this guide will lift up. You can let it hinge back here, but you want it to hinge away from your trunnion gear. All right, this right here. So if you have it out here and you want to do it that way for whatever weird reason, then you still got to do all this, right? you've got to hinge it back there, and you're just going to lift up the whole thing. If you have this fence attached to both of these, when you lift this fence up, you're going to lift both rails up. Here's the thing, you only have a slight little bit of adjustment that way, all right? So be cautious if you do it that way. I took my fence completely off because I did not want it to be in play in case something was wrong with this, causing both of these to not be in alignment together, if that makes sense. So you raise this up. This front one was fine. I had a reference point at the edge of the table. When I got back here, this rail was one tooth too far that way. I had a big old gap back here that I could actually put my finger down on the rail, on the guide, not the rail, and just hold my finger there. So that told me I had to come back here, lift up this rail, go one tooth, bring it back down, then align it, check it, front and back, and I was like, oh, now I'm in alignment, they're both the same. Snug your screws down, put a couple screws back in it, snug it down, don't tighten it down, just one on each end and snug it. That way you have a good reference and the guide rails are flush to the top, okay? Then you take your spacer or measurement, you get up here and you check it against the blade, right? You use a 1/2 inch spacer, 1 inch spacer, 6 inch, whatever you use, right? At that same time, when you get that set and it's working right, okay, then you check your little sight glass over here. Wherever it's at on your table, you check that, you dial that into that dimension. If it's a 1/2 inch spacer, you set that to 1/2 inch. Now, real quick, I'm gonna come back to this in just a minute. Actually, no, I'm gonna hit this now. So, I'm gonna show you something on mine. I actually find this a little bit funny. So, you can see mine sits way that way. Theoretically, and typically, a manufacturer has the screws, this plate is slid back this way, where the screws are in the center of these slots, okay? Now, again, I'm gonna point this out. So, if you have OCD like me, and I've worked through this on mine, and I've just let it go. You can adjust this over to where you want it to be in the middle. Leave the screws slightly snug to where you can still move this if you have to. Then pull this to the adjustment that you want it to be at. Take your screws out here, because you remember you put them in to check it. So take these back out. Lift your rails together, right? Put a mark on the tooth where you're at. Very important, put a mark on the tooth where you're at, front and back, once you have these in alignment. That way, when you move it, because you're going to move it this way to make the sight glass go that way, okay? So you're going to bring it this way. However many teeth you count from your mark should be the same in the back. Very, very, very important. Do not miss that, okay? Or you'll be right back out of alignment. So that will take care of that and get that done. Then you can put the screws back in. You're good to go. Now, should you have the occasion arise where you're checking 1/2 inch spacer, whatever you have, you slide it, and I suggest you whatever spacer you use, you take a square or straight edge or something, put that block down in there, get it snug, honest deal, dial it in, lock your handle down. Take your square, top end, and push that block right through. There should be zero resistance. If you have it snug against the blade, there's going to be a slight friction, slight resistance, but it should be equal from front to back, okay? Make sure that your teeth are out of the way, that you're not hitting those always, because the blade can move just a little bit and it's going to catch it. Then you're going to be thinking, what's going on? Should you get to the back of this, and when you get back here, it starts getting tight again, then do yourself a favor. If your saw has a riving knife, come over here and pull it out. Pull it out, put your throat plate back in, go through the whole thing again, set it, run your spacer, push your spacer. If it goes from front to back and it's the same, then you know you have a problem with this, okay? You can also inherently take a straight edge while it's mounted into the saw and run a straight edge, your square, okay? You can run your straight edge down like this, up against the blade, in between the teeth, up against to the blade. Look to see if there's a space between the square and the blade. Get on the other side, okay? You run it. This is on the far side. So you're gonna run this down. Mine was hitting the blade right here. This is where it was hitting. It would go past this, no problem. It get to the blade and it hit it every time, okay? So that told me that this, because it was hitting the blade here, the blade was about right here, okay? Not quite that far out, all right? But you get the gist. This is an exaggeration, but it was far enough over that this was bent that way. So I had to put this on my marble slab that I have that I check for tolerances. That is ground and polished flat. It's a very expensive piece of equipment, but I use that, I use that to check true flat on all my small items that I have in the shop, okay? I checked it. It's a slight high spot. Got my feeler gauge down to less than a thou, right up under there. Just went into there. Only a thou. Doesn't seem like much. But it was pinching against the fence from this. This was leaning into it, causing it friction, having to fight the saw. Didn't want that. So what I did is I took it, turned it over, did the tap test where you can tap it on both ends, because most of the mass of the body was here laying on the marble. I tapped these and sure enough I got tick, 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 and it was raising this corner up. So that told me right in here was the high spot. So I flipped it over, put it on a cast iron table, and tapped it with a hammer about 10 to 12 different times in order to get that flat. I didn't hit it real hard. You don't want to wail on it. You just want to tap it semi-gently, light to medium, light medium, whatever you want to call it, until you get it to conform. Put it back in your table saw, check it with your straight edge, both front and back, to make sure you are good. All right, moving on. Whoops. That's gonna pretty much get the brunt of your table saw taken care of. And now you see that's right in line. I don't have to worry about that. So let's recap. We've got 90, 45, tuned to the slot. Once it's tuned to the slot, we check the fence. If our fence is good, then we're good to go. I had to go a few extra steps. That's part of the reason I'm making this video, is because I could not find a way to adjust these at all. Nowhere in my head, out of all the logic in my head, that I ever think that would have ever been off one tooth. One little cog in the wheel causes such a big problem. But it was. Now that I've remedied that, I'm okay. So, the other things that I want to point out are, so you have your blade guards. I do want to mention this. Safety is always the first and utmost thing in my shop, in my mind. I wish that and hope that for everybody. If you have to remove your blade guard, which you see most of my videos, it's not on there. There are a few that it is. And if I'm doing work all day where I can have the blade guard on there, I will put it on there. All right, so I have the paws on it that grab, that have little teeth on it to prevent kickback, having it shoot back at me. It also covers it from the dust getting all over me if I'm ripping stuff down. But here's I got to be ripping some pretty big boards to have that up here. If I'm ripping down 2x4s, that thing gets in my way in a hurry. Because I'm ripping them down to 3/8 of an inch thick, that's not going to work for me. Anyhow, if you can use it, use it. If it gets in your way, take it off, just be careful. The riving knife. If your saw has a riving knife, be grateful. Some don't. If your saw has a riving knife, for whatever reason, I don't know what it would be that you would pull that riving knife out of your saw. I can't think of a good reason to do that, but that's me, okay? I feel that that piece of equipment is on that saw, and it is on there for a very good reason, right? It keeps the wood from pinching the back of that saw blade. Once you cut through it, and the front of your saw blade up here is ripping through the new material, cutting a slot in it, and once it gets past that, it's starting to pinch on the back side of that blade. You're fixing to have a problem that you're not ready for, because that will cause kickback. It's gonna either bind your blade down. Best case scenario, it binds the blade down and it stops the saw. You hit the stop button, no harm, no foul, everything's good. Figure out what's going on. Now you got to fix it, because you can't just start cutting again. It's not going to fix itself. There's a reason that riving knife is in there, and that's the reason why. So worst case scenario is it's going to bite the back of that blade. That blade is turning this way, right? It's turning towards you. There's no amount of armor that I've seen any woodworker wear in the shop, because that would be ridiculous, right? That's going to protect you from kickback. If you have a long board and that thing binds up and it bites into that board here, and you've got enough of it, it's going to do this. It's going to throw it, and it's going to come hit you in the face. Arm, shoulder, collarbone. If it's a long, thin piece, it could kick it back out of the saw and not even lift it up. That becomes a spear. You do not want that going on in your shop, trust me. So that's biggest part of the reason for the tune-up and the setup, and the pieces of equipment that come with this need to be included on it as much as possible. I know there are exceptions, and I do that myself. So, riving knife in my saw, always there. All right, what else can I tell you? This has a variable speed motor. I would have to look at the manual to tell you what the actual speeds are. I'm not real sure. I don't even know if it tells me up here. No. But I can buy a round sanding disc that they sell for this table saw, take my blade out, put the sanding disc in here, and find the right speed that I want, and then sand my pieces. Use the tabletops flat, just like a disc sander on another tool, all right? So that's kind of handy for me. I like that. I'm gonna get that sanding disc real soon. Haven't gotten it yet, but it's on order. So, what are some of the other things that I can tell you? It's been a decent saw. It's not a bad saw. It's not the saw I want. It's the saw I need right now. Everybody has to buy their tools within their budget or within their space confinements that they have to meet the needs they're trying to meet, okay? The task that you're trying to do, if you need a cabinet saw, make sure you have the space for a cabinet saw. That's all I'm going to say, because once you get a cabinet saw, you're gonna either dedicate the space for it, because you can't be wheeling it around. You need to set it up and leave it set up and leave it alone. All right, that's the best way to do a cabinet saw. When I had my Powermatic, it was in my 2-car garage right dead in the center, and it lived right there. Everything else got done around that. So this is, by the way, this is a 2 horsepower motor in here, which is really nice. At full throttle, I get all 2 horsepower of it. I can dial it down to 1.5 horses, whatever. I think it even goes below 1 horse, depending on what I'm doing, okay? So the speed will help control that, but its full power potential is 2 horsepower. I've shoved 2x4s through this thing, cherry, oak, walnut, maple, 8-quarter, 10-quarter, 12-quarter thick, and it's ripped it just fine, okay? It cuts it just fine. It cross cuts fine. It rips just fine on all those big heavy hardwoods. Haven't had an issue. So it's not a bad saw. It seems to meet my needs for what we do here. Anyway, be vigilant in checking your stuff on your table saw setup. If there's any questions that anybody has on something that I may have missed, okay, something that I didn't bring up, something that you think should be brought up, leave it in the comments and description below. I'm definitely willing to have any conversation that you want to have, okay? I will answer any questions that you have. If I don't have the answer, I will research it and try to find the right answer for you. I'm not just going to sit here and make up stuff to make it sound good. I'm not that guy, so never have been, not going to go there. But my honest opinion on this is it's a decent saw. For $600, it's done pretty well. The caveat and the exception to the rule on everything, and this is not just because of this saw, check everything that you get. I don't care if it's a handheld saw, if it's a plug-in power tool, check it out. Go through it and don't just glance, oh yeah, okay, cool, oh that works, all right, great, well we're good. Spend some time on it. Spend some time, because there might be something you're just not seeing that's going to cause you a problem down the road. That's all I'm saying. Because I've had this thing spit wood at me before, and I couldn't understand why, because everything was supposed to be in alignment, and it just didn't make sense to me. I almost got whacked in the head by a couple of pieces of wood. And this is why it's important for me to explain all of this to all of you guys and gals out there. All right? So, with that said, I'm going to get out of here. You have a good one. Be careful. Be kind to one another. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.